Welcome back to day 8 of the 12 Days of Innovation. I'm Charles Creasy.
And I'm April Hernandez.
Today, we're going to talk about data, something near and dear to my heart. So it takes a lot of time to analyze data, but it's worth it because you use that to make decisions. Teachers can leverage AI to make that process a little bit easier and a lot more efficient. So we're going to talk about ways that teachers can analyze their data, but before we do that, let's talk about maybe why we do that so that we understand how we want to prompt the AI.
Yeah, and I think when you look at, the icy insights that you get from your data, the main thing that we look at that data for is to identify the learning gaps of our students. Whether the data is telling me previously taught standards or maybe a standard that I just went over with my students in class, I can use that data to help drive my future instruction and see which concepts my students are still struggling with. Another reason why teachers need to be looking at their data is it's going to help you differentiate your instruction. It'll help you identify which students are needing some extension pieces that have mastered the concepts that you're analyzing the data over, or which students need a little bit of support or remediation for that standard. Data can help you see those insights into your classroom.
Absolutely. Also, it really can help you out when you're providing targeted feedback. When you know that this group of students needs help with this specific topic or this specific subpart of a topic. Looking at your data is the only way that you're going to know what your students actually need. And finally, it really just helps with your instructional planning. If I can look at my data and tell that, oh shoot, my kids are not good writers, then I know that I need to include more opportunities for them to write. Or if I see that, hey, we're really struggling on hotspot questions, I can make sure that I include more opportunities for them to practice that skill.
Yeah, and all of those things are great uses of the data that's going to drive that instruction in the classroom. But one thing that's important to remember is we don't wait until, that big summative assessment to look at our data. We would be looking at our data throughout all the formative assessments, whether that's a quiz or even just discussions in class, right? That
Absolutely.
formative assessment data is crucial to be analyzed. That way, when the summative assessment happens, there are no surprises, right? So we should always be looking at that data throughout our instruction. And, that can be time consuming. There's a lot of data that teachers are gathering. And luckily, AI can help you analyze that data and make decisions in the classroom.
Brian Allen, Birdville ISD's Director of Planning, Assessment, and Accountability, shared his thoughts on teachers using AI to drive data insights. He also generated a podcast using Notebook LM to share some ideas on ways teachers could leverage AI to enhance data discussion. You can hear the rest of this discussion on our website.
So before we dive into our demo of using AI to analyze the data, we wanted to remind you all of a few things. Whenever you're dealing with AI and data, make sure you never include student names when talking with the AI.
Right. You don't want to include any kind of personally identifiable information. That includes things like their name or their ID number or just anything that could tie them back to who they actually are.
And during our demo, we'll show you how we've kind of adjusted data to remove that information.
Another thing to keep in mind is you want to try to include a copy of the assessment questions that you're asking the AI to evaluate. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily understand exactly what those questions are about. Even if I give it the language of the standard, if it doesn't understand how I was asking, and especially what the incorrect answers may have been, it won't be nearly as good at giving us the misconceptions that our students were probably having.
And that could include, uploading an entire test or unit test, or even just copying and pasting the open-ended question that you ask students in like an exit ticket or warm-up.
Right. And finally, you always want to verify that those AI responses are accurate. We've had some cases where we tried to put in some data and we got back incorrect information. So you want to double check everything and just make sure that you're not coming to a conclusion that's not supported by the actual data.
Remember what Brian Allen said in his quote earlier, that AI is a powerful tool, but it does not replace the teacher. The teacher is the one that can take those responses from the AI, analyze them, and make those informative decisions in the classroom.
So let's take a look at an AI tool and some strategies that we can use to help us evaluate some data.
All right, so for our demos today, we're going to look at how you can take data from 3 different sources and leverage the AI to help you identify any trends, make any instructional implications, and things like that. So first, we're going to dive into utilizing a Canvas quiz. So let's say our students completed this quiz at the end of class as like maybe an exit ticket, and we'll look at how we can use AI to leverage that data. Then we'll dive into how you can take maybe like an open-ended question where you ask students to explain something and how you can leverage the AI to help you see what those overall ideas are from your students. And then lastly, we'll see how you can use AI to take survey data and generate summaries based on the information received in the survey.
So let's start by looking at some Canvas quiz data and see what kind of insights the AI can help us find. So in this case, I've got the item analysis from a review of functions, scatter plots, trend lines, and MAD. So I've gone ahead and expanded all of my questions, and I can tell just from the summary data that my kids did pretty well on this, but there's still a few kids on each question that are having some misunderstandings. So I want to ask the AI if it can help me figure out sort of what those misunderstandings are and maybe some ways that I can approach helping those individual students. So I'm going to start by printing this to a PDF file so that way I can analyze all of this data in a single prompt. So I would go ahead and save that as a PDF. The other thing that you'll want to do is get a copy of the actual assessment questions. So that way it can tell exactly what's going on for each one of these questions. Once I've printed my item analysis and the copy of my quiz, I'm going to go to NotebookLM. It's notebooklm.google.com. We've talked about it a couple of other times throughout the 12 days, but it allows you to have a chat with your information in your files. It's important that we note that I've already stripped out all of the student data from this item analysis. The item analysis in Canvas doesn't include any kind of personally identifiable information. So in NotebookLM, I'm going to create a new notebook. So I'll create a new notebook, and then I can upload sources. So in this case, I've printed to a PDF file both the item analysis and the quiz. So I'm going to go ahead and add both of those files. And they'll appear over here on the left-hand side. Okay? From here, I can start having a chat. Right? In this case, I'm going to ask the AI to examine the review document and look for patterns in the student responses. I want to go ahead and also tell the AI a little bit about what the files contain, so that way there's no misunderstanding exactly what it is that I'm providing to it. So I'm going to say that one file contains the student's answers to an assessment, and the other contains a copy of the original assessment. Let's also ask the AI to generate a table of the questions with columns for the question number as well as the performance. Let's also ask the AI to group the questions by the type of task we're asked to perform. Finally, I'm going to ask it to make a list of the misconceptions for the top 10 most missed questions. So I'll go ahead and run this, and let's see what kind of insights the AI can give us.
So now you can see that the AI was able to complete all of those steps that we asked it to do. We have our table here of question performance. It's divided up by question number, type of task, and the percent of my students that got it correct, which we can get a lot of that information from our Canvas data. But as I keep scrolling down, this is where I feel like AI can really help teachers. It's able to group those questions by task type, but give me common misconceptions on those most missed questions. So as you can see here, like question 16, where only 37% of our students got it correct, I know as a teacher that's something I need to look at and figure out why, what was happening, and how I can support. So it says here that students may lack proficiency in making predictions based on scatter plots, especially when extrapolating beyond the given data points. They may not accurately interpret the trend depicted in the scatter plot. So I know now as a teacher, I'm going to need to make sure I have supports and questions in place where I'm extending beyond the scatter plot or beyond those given data points based on what the AI was able to tell me.
So another thing that I could do though with this information, I can now take question 16, maybe put that on some slides, put that up on the new line panel, and then have maybe a kid that got that question right, have them come up and explain how they answered. And then that way, it's not necessarily coming from the teacher doing the reteach, it's coming from another student because the kids, sometimes they're more likely to remember the things that their peers come up with versus something that the teacher has said.
One neat thing too about Notebook LM is it provides the sources here. So for question 16, I can see the exact source of where that came from. And then I can verify that the AI is using the information correctly and making those correct decisions.
So in this case, I might look at this and see, oh, 63% of the kids said 418 was the right answer. I could then go back and look at that question and then really determine, like, what was it a bad question? Is there some misunderstanding? I could really start to understand what's going on with my data.
I mean, you can even ask the AI to provide you with some ideas as to why 63% picked 418 or why 37% said 396. So the AI can be a really helpful tool in helping you see those data trends.
If we wanted to save this chat, I would just click Save to Note, and then I'll have a copy here that'll be available to me. That's one of the things to remember with Notebook LM is that your chats are not automatically saved like they are in some other platforms. So if you find some data that you want to refer back to later on, make sure you hit that Save to Note button. So let's say that maybe this included data not only from my assessment, but maybe I also have the rest of my team's assessment in here, and we want to compare data across our entire campus. I have the option up here in the top right to be able to share this discussion or this notebook with others. So I could add my teammates to it, and then they could also utilize the same chat, have access to all of my same notes. So that way we can really dive in and look at how we're doing as a team.
And so we only uploaded our data, but with Notebook LM, you can upload multiple sources. So I could have all the partner teachers' data within this same chat and have it analyze that data and help me make those decisions.
You can upload up to 50 files, so potentially, if you had multiple times that you had assessed kind of the same information, we might even be able to look at how we progressed from the beginning of a unit, maybe to the middle, and even towards the end.
All right, so for our next example here, we have a Google form where students were asked to explain their thinking. So as students analyzed the problem, they were trying to determine the error that happened in the problem. So if you notice in our data for our form, we have several responses from students. There's over like 100 responses in here. I can leverage the AI to help read these responses and summarize the misconceptions that my students may be having to help me kind of see where my students are on their track to answering the question. In order for the AI to be able to help us, one of the most important things is the AI has to know what students were being asked, right? The AI has to know the question. So if I head back over to my Google form, I can take a screenshot of this image and upload it to my chatbot of choice. That way it can analyze the question that the students were asked before I give it the data. So with ChatGPT, we are able to screenshot images and upload them for it to analyze. So I'll go ahead and attach the image from my computer by clicking attach and then upload from computer. Once I have the image uploaded, I will ask the AI to examine the image or problem on the Pythagorean theorem.
So it's important that we do this so that way the AI is demonstrating that it understands the problem, because I don't want to trust it to give feedback if it doesn't understand how this problem even works. The other thing that we want to make sure that we do is never include students' names or any kind of personally identifiable information. So what we've already done here is we've converted the students' names to be student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So if you need help doing this, we can just say student 1, student 2, and then if I select those two cells and then use the fill handle in the bottom right corner, I can drag it down to copy that same format to all of the other responses. And it will update and hide any student names.
One thing we could have also done here is made a copy of this spreadsheet that left the student names there. That way, as I look back at my data and I use the AI to leverage, and AI is saying like, well, student 7, I might not know who student 7 is. That's why if we make a copy, we can look back and see, okay, who was at that line 8 or student 7.
Here, we'll go ahead and go to File, and then we'll download this as a PDF. That way we can upload a PDF to ChatGPT with all of our responses.
Now that we have our data in a PDF form that the AI is able to analyze, I will attach the PDF with my responses. So now that I have my PDF attached, I will ask the AI to draw conclusions about my students' understanding and identify any mistakes that they were made and give me a list of the students who made that mistake so I can work with them individually. So I'll go ahead and send my responses to the AI. So I can see now that it says one of the most common primary errors was to not take the square root, which is exactly what we wanted our students to be able to identify, right? And from my list, I can see the majority of my students were able to identify that the square root was not taken in this problem. But I can also see some more misconceptions that the students maybe were making, maybe misunderstanding what the final answer was, or confusion in the language. But once I've analyzed all those different pieces, the AI kind of goes a step further and gives me suggestions for addressing any of those misconceptions. So it suggests maybe I group the discussions by error type or reinforce that final step. So if I wanted to now, I can continue my conversation with ChatGPT, asking it to maybe provide me with some more examples for students to analyze and respond to, or just to give me some more pointers for teaching these concepts to my students.
Finally, it doesn't even have to be a content question that they're responding to. We can use AI to help us summarize something like a survey. Here, the digital learning team surveyed students in Birdville ISD about their use of AI. We had over 450 responses. While we did go through and look at each of these individual responses, we can also leverage AI to help us take a look at some of the ways that students would like to see AI tools used in their classroom. So we could export all 467 responses, take that to ChatGPT and ask it to help us identify trends and maybe some of the key ways that the students in our district would like to use AI. Our challenge for you today is to take some responses from a recent formative assessment or a survey, or you could even use some of the sample data that we've put up on the website and generate a list of misconceptions and some remediation strategies for students based on the data provided. So as you're doing that, try to think about how the data that the AI helped you compile impacts your teaching practices. And then maybe what other ways could you use AI to help you in evaluating student understanding based on the data?
So now that we've looked at how AI can help you identify student needs or even summarize large amounts of data, stick around for tomorrow's video where we'll look at how AI can help you build scaffolds and extension to meet those student needs of all the diverse learners in our classroom. And don't forget to check out the resources on the website and complete the Google form for CPE or Flex Credit. We'll see you tomorrow.